Rigby's Roads, Chapter 5, Motorcycle Boot Camp. Jack came down the stairs in tan docker pants and a polo shirt. "That's not gonna work," Yogi told him. Yogi reached into one of his duffel bags and pulled out a black t-shirt. "Here." He threw it to him. It had a Harley insignia on the front in orange and white. The back had the same motif, but had the words Roaring Wheels, Denver, Colorado around the logo. Yogi added, "And put on a pair of jeans, old jeans." The shirt was tight, but gave him a whole new dimension. Yogi continued the dress rehearsal. "Do you have shades?" "Flip-ups," he replied. "They'll do. What about boots?" "Can I wear cowboy boots?" "Yeah, but you'll have to work on your wardrobe a little. You're about to join a unique fraternity that comes with certain expectations. Actually, you don't have to change anything, but when you're with Uncle Bob, you should at least show him the courtesy. He has an image to uphold." Jack changed his clothes and went downstairs. He didn't quite understand what Yogi was trying to tell him, but the last thing he wanted to do was disappoint Wheels. He walked past the hallway mirror and stopped in his tracks. He didn't know the guy looking back at him. In fact, he looked mean, scary. Boots, jeans, Harley t-shirt, shades, and a scraggly-looking beard. He was starting to look like someone else. He nodded and smiled at his reflection. The Jack in the mirror was no longer the old Jack that he knew. The roar of a distant engine indicated Wheels' arrival. He turned to Yogi. "How do I look?" he asked as if he was going out on a date. "You'll do. Pay attention to everything Uncle Bob says. It'll all be part of your class." Jack met Wheels at the door. Wheels gave him a long look.
"Excuse me, is there a Mr. Jack Rigby here?"
Jack smiled, so big that it made Wheels laugh hard.
"I'll be right with you, Jack. I need to speak to Yogi for a minute."
Wheels walked into the den towards Yogi, and then talked quietly. Jack walked outside to the front porch to give them privacy. After a few minutes, Wheels joined Jack outside, and they approached Wheels' motorcycle. "Electroglide, ultra classic," Jack proclaimed knowingly.
"Very good, Jack. I see Yogi's been schooling you."
Jack actually cheated by reading the name on the front fender.
"Okay, Jack, listen up. Rule number 1, never get on or off a bike unless I say it's okay. This bike weighs 788 pounds without us on it, and if I don't have my feet planted on both sides for support, we'll fall over. Number 2, these are the tailpipes. They are hotter than the sun. They can burn the bottom of your shoes right off, and that is why all bikes have foot pegs. Listen, use them. Number 3, during turns, lean with me, not ahead of me. You need to keep your head directly in line with mine, and you'll get the feel for it."
He was going to mention that he had a motorcycle when he was a kid, but Jack didn't want to interrupt. Wheels handed him a helmet.
"Here, put this on. Always wear a helmet."
"But the other day, when your gang was here..."
Whoa. It's a chapter, Jack. They are members of our chapter. Doctors, lawyers, plumbers, city council members, some Bronco football players, TV newsmen, the mayor. People just like you, Jack. They're all members of our chapter."
"Sorry. The other day when your chapter was here, some of them didn't wear helmets."
"Jack, did you ever have a bug hit you in the face going 65 miles an hour? Or a rock? Living in Colorado, you should know how many windshields get cracked by flying rocks. Also, if you go down, and it may never happen, but if you do, you'll be glad you're wearing this. As far as members of the chapter not wearing one, that's their choice. They think wearing one doesn't fit the image, that they don't look cool. Helmets are not mandatory in Colorado, but they are mandatory when you ride with me."
The helmets had a two-way radio system built into them with a microphone attachment to the mouth, similar to a hands-free phone set. Wheels cranked up the cycle.
"Okay, climb on board."
Jack heard the words crystal clear in his helmet. From the moment they left the driveway, Wheels never stopped talking. He talked about offensive and defensive lane placement, where you place yourself in the flow of traffic, always concentrating 4 seconds ahead because situations within that area require your immediate concern for a possible response. They rode around town in places Jack was familiar with, but now there was a different awareness that was being laid out before him. Wheels was teaching him about braking distance, reaction times, multi-lane roads, blind hills, cornering, and prioritizing multiple road hazards. Wheels summed it up saying,
"A good way to remember it is SIPT. That stands for scan the area, identify potential hazards, predict what may happen, decide what to do, and execute the proper reaction."
The amount of information was overwhelming. Jack realized how little he knew about the subject of being a defensive driver. He was also amazed that every motorcycle rider they encountered knew Wheels. They all waved at him. Sometimes Wheels would wave back, and other times he would ignore them. Jack started waving excitedly at every biker they saw. Wheels interrupted him.
"Jack, don't do that. When you get home, ask Yogi about the wave."
When they finished for the night and had arrived back home, Wheels told Jack,
"After you get your driver's license on Monday, stop by the shop to sign your paperwork and pick out a few things."
"Okay, and thanks," he replied. He walked in the door and Yogi was at the computer, looking perplexed. "Jack, come here for a second. The other day you mentioned your boss had a dog, Buster, right? Do you know if he had a dog that died? And would you know the name of that dog?" "Yeah, but why do you need to know that?" "I'm looking for a password. People use their pets' names as passwords." "Password for what?" "For access to his computer," Yogi said. Jack looked closer at the computer screen. It was the sign-in screen from work. "How can you—" He couldn't finish the sentence as he stared at the screen in disbelief. "Dog's name?" Yogi asked impatiently. Bandit, I think." "Yeah, it was Bandit." Jack watched as Yogi typed in Bandit. "Login incorrect." "Bandit 4185. Login incorrect." Then 4185 Bandit. "Login incorrect." "Bandit 388. Login incorrect." Jack watched confused. "What are those numbers?" Yogi explained. "People sometimes add their last 4 digits of their social security number, birth dates, phone number, or their address to their pet's name. They think it's a big secret that nobody will ever discover. It's the second thing I look for." "What's the first?" It's not a big secret, Jack. In fact, it's rather stupid. The number one password that people use is password. Real creative, isn't it?" "There it is." Yogi got excited. 6479 Bandit. It's his last 4 digits of his work phone number with his dog's name. "Now let's take a look at his files." He tapped Yogi on the shoulder. "Can I do this?" He gently tapped the back of his hand against Yogi's shoulder as if to say, "Scoot over, let me drive." Yogi obliged, and Jack was fixated on the screen as he eagerly went on a mission. Yogi watched him dig in with a fiery passion. Jack pulled up emails from Tompkins to Carl that blatantly took credit for some of Jack's ideas. He read Tompkins' monthly reports and saw how he twisted the truth. He scanned through the files for over 2 hours. It was very thought-provoking for him. On Wednesday morning, his mind was split on Tompkins' emails and on Richard Marshall, the paper thief. Yogi caught him stealing the paper a second time on video and figured out the pattern. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, every other day as part of his jogging routine, he made Yogi promise him that he wouldn't do anything unless he informed him first. It was a long debate, but he asserted himself to the point that Yogi recognized he was starting to stand up for himself, so he let him win that discussion. Jack was getting tired of watching someone else fighting his battles, and he wanted to step to the front of the line for himself. He told Yogi to come up with a plan and some alternatives. He was starting to use his creative process to get his life back on track. It was a good step towards his mental emancipation. When he arrived at work, he skipped the flower picking. He put his new CD player on his desk that he just bought from Target. The trouble was, he didn't have any CDs, not one. In fact, he still owned a record collection, but hadn't played them in decades. He waited for Bonnie to show up so he could borrow the CD they talked about the day before. He reviewed the Mingus email he had sent to her and prepared himself for their first meeting. The phone rang. It was Paxton, the IRS agent from hell. He reminded Jack of the upcoming appointment for his audit. There was no need for Paxton to call him. The letter he received in the mail was enough. Every year, he questioned Jack on his taxes, no matter how perfect they were. He made him sit through 2 hours of intense questioning every July, as if he enjoyed squeezing him for answers. July was hard enough, since it was also the anniversary of M's death. He reread his motorcycle driver's books again, focusing on the highlighted sentences. Bonnie came in, and he gave her some time to review her email and phone messages. After an hour, he approached Bonnie. "Good morning, sunshine. Did you have a chance to review Mingus?" "Yes, I did. I finished a rough draft last night. When do you want to look at it?" "Now's a good time. Let me see what you have." Bonnie looked up and gave him a look with a devilish smile, waiting for him to realize his choice of words could have been better chosen. She enjoyed putting him on the spot. He realized he had to stop using sentences that had a double meaning. They went over the project, and he expounded on each sentence, building the important meaning behind each bullet point. As he talked, she typed, asking questions that would lead to the next bullet point. They never stepped on each other's words and were always in tune to the same focal point. They enjoyed the fast-paced bantering back and forth of the creative process. When they were finished, 3 hours had flown by. He sat back and let out a sigh of relief, as if he had witnessed the first moon landing again. He smiled at her, and she smiled back. They made a great team, and they knew it. He was sorry to see this mini collaboration end, and she struggled for something to say that was not work-related. He changed the subject. "Can I borrow that CD you had yesterday?" She opened her CD case and pulled one out. "Here, I burned this for you last night." "Burned it?" "Blank CD, found a torrent, burned the songs to the disc." "What's a torrent?" "It's like a library for songs. You download what you want and make your own music." "Thanks. That was thoughtful. I'll give it back to you when I'm done." "No, I made it for you to keep. It's a collection of the songs I like. I was in a weird mood last night and tweaked the list. I hope you like it." He thanked her and went back to his desk. He called Yogi to find out about dinner. Yogi told him, "Don't worry, I have it covered." When Jack pulled into his driveway, the border between the houses caught his eye. Not only did Jerry and his friends finish repairing and painting the fence, but it looked like they raked out the leaves and pulled some weeds also. It hadn't looked that good in years. Yogi had dinner on the table, chicken breast with mashed potatoes, salad, and the smell of apple pie in the oven. He was surprised. "You made this?" "Sort of. It comes as a whole meal. I just popped it in the oven." Jack opened the refrigerator. It was full of food, and so was the closet. Yogi had gone shopping and filled the place up. Jack surveyed the food choices in the pantry. He picked up 2 large canisters. "What's this? Cayenne pepper? What the hell am I going to do with all of this?" "You shouldn't have bought all this food. Now what do I owe you?" "Nothing. It's compliments of Richard Marshall, your paper thief." Jack had a nervous look on his face. "You threatened him?" "I told you not to take any steps until we talked about it." "Calm down, Jack. I never spoke to him. I bought these groceries today. Come here. Let me show you something." Yogi pulled out a brand new credit card that had Jonathan Corbett printed on it. Jack studied the credit card. "You used a stolen credit card? That's stupid. I thought you'd be smarter than that." "Jack, have you ever heard the phrase, jumping to conclusions?" Yogi took out his wallet and pulled some IDs. "Here's a library card from CU, a social security card, and a driver's license. See what they all say? Jonathan Corbett. The driver's license has me at age 18, but this credit card is real. Sort of." What do you mean, sort of? And why did you say this food is compliments of Richard Marshall? Here's how it works. The credit card and other stuff is registered in all databases. It's legit. First, I do my homework on the intended mark. Yogi hit the keyboard and both of his computer screens popped up, showing Richard Marshall's entire life. His credit report, bank account information, newspaper articles that mentioned his name for any reason, his mortgage records, arrest records, credit card history of where he shopped and what he bought, even his IRS records. And check this out. This is his home computer, and these are the websites he visits the most. His home computer? How can you? Jack was speechless, shaking his head in disbelief. Yogi continued, so I gather the necessary info and visit my friend, Circuits. Circus? No, circuits, as in computer circuits. He has a mag tape machine. You know the magnetic strip on the back of a credit card right here? He has the machine that can print those out. So, in reality, I am using my credit card with my fake name embossed on it, but it has Richard Marshall's magnetic strip on it, so it gets charged to him. I have friends who work at the registers at different stores. I do them favors and they don't ask questions when I use the credit card. I keep track of when and where I use it and make sure it's spread around to the same stores that the victim shops at. It's a beautiful thing. Jack was hesitant. And Wheels approves of this? Actually, he doesn't know about this setup, and I would appreciate it if you would please keep this between you and me. Jack stared at this perpetrator of criminal magic, looking for the right words to say. Listen, I won't say anything to Wheels as long as you promise to never use it as Richard Marshall's again. That's not my way of getting even though I must say it's pretty clever. Deal, Yogi said, and they shook hands, while Jack gave a disgusting look to Yogi. Jack added, I'm serious, Yogi. They reviewed Marshall's life on the computer screens and brainstormed a subtle revenge. Jack insisted nothing illegal, but something definitely unique. He felt it was his obligation to introduce Yogi to a more creative method of dealing with problems in a non-technical way. Thursday flew by fast, and he and Bonnie performed a formal review of the presentation. Everything was businesslike until she asked if he enjoyed the CD. He told her he hadn't listened to it yet, and a look of disappointment came over her, and her attitude changed abruptly. He realized she was reaching out to him by making the special CD, and he had totally ignored it. He made the excuse that he forgot to bring home his CD player. She knew he was lying, and he felt really bad. I promise I'll listen to it tonight and tell you about it tomorrow. She snapped back with, I won't be in tomorrow. I'm taking the day off. Then he added, I'm taking vacation days for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week, and since we already have the 4th and 5th off, I won't be back until a week from Monday. With a forced smile, he could only add, have a great 4th of July. He went back to his desk with her disappointed look stuck in his mind. He grabbed his CD player and the CD and went home, anticipating the start of his motorcycle classes. Jack was pumped up for his 4 days of classes. He had classroom work on Thursday and Friday night from 5:30 to 8:30, and then road work all day Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on a laid-out course in a parking lot. There were 5 others in the class. John, a 30-year-old cardiac emergency room specialist, wanted to get a Harley to drive in the mountains to help him physically and mentally relax from his work. Laura was a 20-something skinny girl who had never been on a motorcycle in her life. She had a thirst for adventure as a bungee jumper, scuba diver, and she had hitchhiked through Europe by herself. Don was a 35-year-old day trader who flaunted his money with his overpriced clothes and jewelry. He also had never been on a motorcycle in his life, not even on the back of one. Susie was a 42-year-old widow with a great set of muscles, tattoos everywhere, and was only 5'2". Dave was a 40-year-old who owned a sprinkler repair business. He was going through a midlife crisis and always wanted a Harley. It had been 22 years since he last rode a motorcycle. The teacher, Alex Sargento was a 35-year-old motorcycle cop with a shaved head and an earring. He instructed his students to call him Sarge. Not only did Sarge teach these classes to first-timers and experienced riders, he also taught all of the motorcycle cops in the state of Colorado. The classroom activity for the first 2 nights covered 50 pages of everything a motorcyclist needed to know about defensive driving, rules of the road, protective clothing, and the classic do's and don'ts. They watched 8 different videos and were tested on 5-second pictures. Sarge flashed a picture for only 5 seconds of a motorcyclist in a traffic situation. Then he turned the picture off. Each snapshot had multiple circumstances to be aware of, and he asked the class to tell him everything they saw as a potential safety issue. In one of the pictures, a motorcycle was approaching an intersection with a traffic light. A car approaching from the other direction had his turn signal on to turn left. There was a fence blocking a blind alley on the right, a fast food driveway exit. A loose dog stood by a tree, and there were kids playing with a ball on the sidewalk. They had to spot all of that in 5 seconds. Jack missed the fence with the blind alley. They saw 10 different 5-second situations, each with a different scenario. This was where the SIPDE, SIPDE, comes in. Scan 4 seconds ahead, identify, predict, decide, and execute. It was the same information that Wheels covered on their ride the other night. After class at home, he listened to the CD Bonnie made for him. He laughed out loud at the selections she put together. The first song was You Don't Bring Me Flowers Anymore, followed by Cowboy, Take Me Away, and a series of country music choices, each with a hidden message, or so he wanted to believe. Maybe he was reading too much into this. He decided to play along with his hunch and make her a CD with songs that would send her a message from him. Yogi taught him how to download songs from the internet, and he was schooled on the art of stealing music without paying for it. It was a contradiction for Jack, but he insisted Yogi teach him. Yogi hooked up Jack's computer to his server to allow faster downloads. Free music that was as easy to download as a few simple clicks was so amazing, but it disturbed him that it was still stealing. He would gladly pay for the right to download certain songs. If you take away the manufacturer's packaging and shipping of CDs to the store, it would then be a reduced, reasonable price for each song. When he bought record albums, he'd buy the whole album, and sometimes only like 1 or 2 songs from the entire selection. Having the ability to download that one specific song directly into his computer was definitely the way things should be. Friday's work class was similar to Thursday's, but the Saturday classes were at the riding course that was laid out on the Fort Collins dog track parking lot. It was marked off in yellow circles and white lines. After Sarge instructed the group about the hand signals that he would be using for communication purposes, they each were given a Buell Blast motorcycle, a 492cc single-cylinder engine with a low center of gravity that was light and easy to control. The first lesson was to walk the bike 75 feet across the pavement and back. The purpose was to give the riders, especially the new ones, a chance to feel where the center of gravity was. Don, the rich day trader, laughed as Laura, the skinny girl, lost the bike's balance about halfway on her walk and the bike fell over. Sarge yelled out, "There's nothing funny about having an accident," and the whole group knew he was dead serious. Sarge helped her get the bike up and showed her the small range of tilt that the bike could be balanced in. As they turned around to walk their bikes back to the starting point, Don lost his balance and his bike tipped over. Sarge, who was still near Laura, walked by her and whispered, "Now that was funny." Next, they cranked it up for a ride across the lot in straight lines, in first gear only, to get a sense of balance while riding slowly. Then they rode the perimeter in large circles, keeping an equal distance from each other and going no faster than 15 miles per hour. Sarge stood in the middle, like a horse trainer at the circus, barking at them to keep their distance in line as they made their rounds. Next, they rode carefully, weaving in and out of traffic cones. 30 minutes of making sharp turns left and right, followed by shifting gears while riding in circles, then stopping on a curve. After each exercise, Sarge told them what they did right and what to adjust on their next try, being very specific about turning, stopping, and shifting gears. At the end of the day, Jack was physically drained, especially from the 94-degree heat and being on the hot asphalt. He had learned a lot, and the no-nonsense approach from Sarge helped the first-timers keep up with those who had some experience. Sunday's class began with 4 hours of review road work on the parking lot course. They started off with a warm-up ride that snaked around the traffic cones. Jack enjoyed the figure-8 demolition avoidance, where they all rode in big circles in a figure-8 while avoiding hitting each other as they crossed paths, with no stopping or no foot-downs allowed. The lessons grew more intense as they had to control rear wheel skids, which involved riding 25 miles an hour, slamming on the rear brakes, and riding the skid until they stopped. They practiced stopping in the shortest distance that they could with no skidding allowed. These two events were part of the final exam in the afternoon. Other items on the road test finals included quick lane changes, tight U-turns, and stopping on curves while downshifting. After lunch, they started the final road test. Sarge explained he took points off for riding on or outside the lines, for hitting a cone, not keeping your eyes up, and for not downshifting to first gear on quick stops. Jack had to go first on each test. Unlike their practice sessions, they only had one shot to get it right. At the end of the day, after the testing was over, Sarge called each student up one at a time to tell them how they did. Sarge told Jack, "Perfect score. No points taken off or anything. That's why I put you first to lead the way for the others, because you have a great feel for riding." Jack was beaming. Everyone else had points taken off for something. The written test had 50 questions, and he also earned a perfect score on that. He received his motorcycle driver's class card, a diploma, and a goofy paper award that showed chic of sharp turns. Everyone in class got a personalized diploma for something special they were good at. Now, he only needed to take his written test at the DMV to make it official. End Chapter 5.